supersized Out of Pocket. We used to, if you remember in the original carnation of this show, we had an hour Friday afternoons during your drive time. And now we're doing a supersized Out of Pocket because there's so much to talk about and dive into before this weekend. So thank you guys for joining us on Out of Pocket with Michael Davis on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. You guys can be a part of the show as well. If you put a comment on our YouTube channel, if you put a comment on Twitter, Facebook, it should pop up. We can have your comment display on the YouTube feed so you can be a part of our show. But I want to give flowers to the people who are on the panel today before we get into some breaking news. First, we have a first-time guest, but he is somebody I have looked up to forever. His story, he was basically on a 2-year track ahead of me while I was going through community college, and then I went to App State and pursued the broadcasting adventure. So I've always looked up to Braxton. He gave me one of my first breaks in college, sitting in with him and former App State player Pierre Banks. So it's a super special day for me to have Braxton Critcher on for the first time for Out of Pocket. Braxton, thank you so much. How are you doing this Friday afternoon?
What's up, man? Pretty good. The only reason you look up to me is because I'm 6'1". That's the only
okay
reason.
We don't have to bring the height into it. Okay. God,
or that should be the only reason that you look up to me, but I'm excited to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Hey, God doesn't stop till he reaches perfection. He just stopped once he reached 5'7" with me. But we also have from the Two Pointers podcast, he's done a lot of stuff with everything college basketball as well. Trevor was on the show a couple weeks ago. We got Trevor Everette. Behind him is DJ Burns, just lurking behind him in the entire United States of America. Trevor, it's awesome to have you on the show today, my man.
All 5'9" of me's here. I'm excited to jump into it.
Well, it took a couple more inches for you to reach perfection. And then we have the producer, Desmond Johnson, who I don't know how he does it, how much stuff he's got to do. And he allowed us to have an hour today. So, Des, I appreciate you.
Yeah, man, we appreciate y'all. This is the only sports talk format live show in the Triad at lunchtime during the week. So we're filling a void. Numbers have been good past couple of weeks as we've grown and people start to find out about us. And just looking forward to the growth of this slot and what can potentially happen from out here. So just great work to everybody involved.
And the biggest part of the show is the people watching right now live, the people who go back after their day's work and watch it on replay, on demand. All our episodes are on demand on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. So if you guys are enjoying it, just share it on your social media, share it to your Twitter, share it to your Facebook, text your buddy, say, hey, check this out, because we have breaking news that dropped here in the last hour. And we got to start that before we get into the Final Four. A certain someone, son of a guy we talked about yesterday, Mr. Bronny James, has declared for the NBA draft after his freshman year at USC. So Bronny's going pro. I don't know if he's a first-round pick. I don't know if he's a second-round pick. I don't know if he's undrafted altogether. But Bronny has decided to go pro into the NBA draft. Braxton, it's your first time on the show, so I want to start with you. What's your initial reaction to this news, and do you think Bronny's ready to go pro?
My initial reaction is the same that I texted you a little bit, Michael, a little bit ago. I said, that's crazy. So, I mean, the only reason we're talking about him right now is because of his dad. I mean, he averaged 5 points last year, and he showed that he's really athletic, but got a lot to work on. So, I mean, wow. Yeah. Going to the NBA draft is probably a stretch for this guy. But, you know, I think it's something that he will probably test and then come back and transfer somewhere else. But, I mean, hey, if you like storylines, dude doesn't get drafted and the Lakers pick him up. I mean, that's a storyline.
That's a storyline that he would play with his dad.
Yeah.
Trevor, you tweeted about this also, and Braxton brought up the stats. 4.8 points per game, 2.8 rebounds per game, 2.1 assists per game, and under 40% shooting. Trevor, those are not stats that are pro ready.
So I'm going to I hate to do this to you, but I'm just going to take this a completely different direction because I feel like I'm the only person in eternity that's going to do this, and it deserves to be said. It took us 5 minutes and 15 seconds for us to bring up the fact that he's also transferring. So I understand that we as media are going to talk about the draft headline as a testing the waters thing. We'd be talking about any guy right now that's going to be testing the waters with the draft. This is not specifically directed at Braxton. It's directed at the 1,500 people
I don't
that
know.
texted me in the last 32 minutes.
I'm feeling attacked.
Well, no, like I just wanted to be clear that, like, no, specifically to you, I'm glad that you brought it up. You at least threw it, even if it was a 15-second sentence that about him transferring, also, which is definitely going to happen. It's going to be the result of this. No one's expecting this guy. By the way, to make it clear, like people are already texting me and tweeting about it and posting about it. My whole point about the tweet Mike was talking about was people are definitely going to overreact to this. It's going to be talked about. It's going to be led with the fact that he's testing the draft waters. There are hundreds of guys every year that do that. My point being is whether it's his dad or not that's related to why we're talking about it, he's also hitting the portal, and it's something that's getting completely missed and blown over. And it's really frustrating because this is ultimately going to be his result. So we ultimately need to treat it the same way as it's part of the headline. Like people were texting me like, oh, Bronny's entering the draft. And I go, cool, you also realize he's transferring, right? Like you also realize that's a fallback and that's something that's ultimately happening. And then at the end of the day, the guy had a heart attack 14 months ago. So who cares about like the process and all that stuff? Like he's probably not ready regardless of all the other stuff, but to add the health onto it, it's something that needs to be said at least.
And you can't underestimate the health of a player, especially that young. Health problems can take anybody out at any time for any period point of time. Had my setbacks last fall. But Des, you and I were talking about LeBron yesterday, and we talked about the potential of Bronny transferring, and now this NBA draft declaration comes out right before the show. How are you processing all this?
I'm kind of where Trevor is, where I'm not so concerned about him declaring for the draft because he's not draftable at this point. Other than his last name, I mean, what else does he have to offer to a team? Like, and it's sad because this isn't the first time this has happened with like a NBA legend having a son that plays basketball, and he kind of gets pushed further than he probably should have because of his dad, whoever it was. Michael Jordan's kids were the same way. Marcus and the other kid, they were playing Division I basketball too, and it feels like it's more LeBron trying to push his kid into the NBA than it is Bronny actually being a viable NBA player. Now, the whole transfer thing, I can understand that. I don't understand LeBron. I saw a quote on Twitter from him yesterday basically saying that that Bronny would only transfer into a place where he could be the leader and have some talent around him. To some effect, to that note, basically he was saying he needs to go to a loaded team and he needs to be the leader. It's pretty much what I was seeing. And I'm just sitting there thinking, kind of like father, like son, sort of, because that's kind of what LeBron did, right? I mean, he kind of went and surrounded himself with talent everywhere he went after he left Cleveland the first time. So is he trying to apply that to Bronny? I don't understand it. I will say this, though. Duke hasn't really used the transfer portal yet since Shire's become the head coach. I would not be surprised to see Bronny James in Duke Royal Blue next year if he transfers someplace, because that could – what college could you go to today that's going to pretty much guarantee you're going to be on TV 40 times, during the season and get exposure? It's still Duke. So I could see him going to Duke. Now, could I see him getting so good he becomes draftable? Like, no. I mean, a team might take a flyer on him in the second round just to kind of see what LeBron was saying, if that was all true or whatever. But I can't say Bronny James is a viable pro player at this point when he was only averaging 4 points per game and coming off the bench at USC.
Yeah. I mean, I think like it's smart if you're a college basketball player and you think that one day you may have the ability to go play in the pro ranks, to at least go get graded by scouts.
Right.
And, he has the option. He has till May 1st to go do that, test the waters, get some scouts to look at him, give him some grades, what I can work on next year, then make a transfer. Now, the Duke idea, that's pretty wild. But yeah, I mean, there's so many things with stuff like this. You're right, Desmond, that these kids get attention just because of their dad. And he was the 20th best prospect coming out of high school last year. And that probably was because of his last name too. I mean, he's pretty athletic. He's got a lot of athleticism, but his skills offensively got a long way to go. Defense pretty sharp, but and that's the NBA now though. If you can play defense and you're really athletic and you can find a shot, you probably can make it somewhere. So you never know. But yeah, I think he's just trying to go get graded, get some ideas of what he can work on, and then he'll find a place to transfer. The thing is for LeBron that a lot of people are talking about is if Bronny transfers to said school, LeBron can be a free agent after the year. Could an NBA team behind the scenes work with a college program and say, hey, if you bring in Bronny, we'll give you some NIL and we might can get LeBron on our team. Like, I mean, that's out there. So
the only pushback I would have with that is the cap situation this summer. I know things can happen in 30 seconds when it comes to cap space, but like the only teams that have cap space right now are like Detroit and Orlando and places, and San Antonio is probably the only weird one in there. But even regardless of that point, like the other thing to think about is he has a new head coach at USC if he decides to come back, who a guy who has incredible coaching experience who also coached in the NBA in the early 2000s in Golden State. So look, one of the best negotiators right now is Eric Musselman. He's a guy that I understand it's a quantity over quality sometimes with him, with calling 135 recruits apparently according to last offseason. But don't be surprised. I know the Duke thing's interesting, but don't be surprised if he even considers coming back to USC because of some of the talent that they'll be bringing in and the fact that he's an incredible coach that is well connected in the league. My only thing about the cap space part of it was, we have no idea what's going to happen with LeBron. And at the end of the day, like anybody's going to clear cap space for him. But I just keep looking at it going, unless it's the Spurs, I just don't know where he's going. He's definitely going to re-sign in Los Angeles, which makes my USC point at least something that seems palatable.
Where did the Spurs come from?
They have a ton of cap space. That was just saying cap space was Detroit, Orlando, San Antonio, and Charlotte I think has. Yeah. But that's, no, LeBron's not going to any of those places except for San Antonio.
Yeah, he can't help an NBA team. That's the main thing here. Like, he's not good enough to play in the NBA. Like, we're almost taking it for granted. There's only 300 and something NBA players total or something like that. And we're sitting here talking about whether or not Bronny James, a 4-point per game scorer in the Pac-12, deserves an NBA spot. Like, it's weird. Like, we're not even saying G League. Like, we're talking, can he make the NBA? The answer is no. He can't make the NBA. Like, it's getting ridiculous. Like, it's crazy to me to think that Zach Edey might not get drafted, yet we're sitting there talking about Bronny James getting drafted by some team to appease a 40-year-old LeBron James. Like, this is wild. Like, I don't understand it.
Are people really talking about that he could play in the NBA? I've not heard that.
Bronny James? Yeah. That's been kind of the narrative. People just assume that he would get a spot somewhere because of his dad. And I'm just always looking at it like, but he's not that good. He's not that good. He's not NBA good. He never has been. So, if he was Bronny Smith, we wouldn't even be talking about this guy.
That's true. That's true.
At all. Like, it wouldn't even be a news note that he entered the portal. Like, we was like, who is Bronny Smith? Like, he never got off the bench at USC. I don't know.
And that's a good point because, I think this all impacts what LeBron does for his future. Like, does LeBron, play an extra year, play 2-3 more years like we talked about yesterday because his son's there in the NBA early, and that's like a dream of theirs, whether they're playing on the same team or just playing against each other. Like, that could impact what LeBron does for the rest of his career. It's an interesting point to make, and especially tap outs and touchdowns commented on our YouTube channel, like Ohio State's an option. We've pulled out that Trevor said he might go back to USC. Des said he might go to Duke for more exposure. Like, we don't know, but the name value brings him value, and it's not one of these. It's not one of these things where Marvin Harrison Jr. is living off his dad's name. Like, Marvin Harrison Jr. is actually really he's a really, really good prospect.
If he was Marvin Smith, he would still be a top 3 wide receiver getting picked in the NFL draft. Like, there's just a difference.
Maybe he would be the son of Steve Smith. Senior at that point.
No, I'm not gonna sit here and say that Bronny James can't get better. I'm not gonna sit here and say he can't grow into an NBA player. He does have that blood in him, and he's 6'4". He's going to be going into sophomore year. If he stays and works at it, who knows what he could turn into? But as it stands right now, April 2024, he is not a draftable NBA player. Like, whoever does it is just basically trying to appease LeBron James and lure him to Charlotte or wherever place decides to try to make this plan happen, but it just no.
Acquiring Bronny James is the ultimate play to get LeBron James, because it's like, who does LeBron want to play with? Who better than his son? But I'm sure that's a story that we'll follow here over the next few months, especially when Bronny decides whether he's going to transfer to a school or whether he's actually going to try to shoot for the NBA this year. But I invited these guys on to talk about the Final Four this weekend and what a field we have. We have UConn, the defending champions. We have Alabama in their first Final Four. We have Purdue and Zach Edey doing a redemption tour. And then we have the miraculous NC State. So we have a few teams to cover, and then we'll cover Wrestlemania on the back end with me and Desmond. But when it comes to UConn, I saw that 30-0 run last weekend, the Elite Eight, where it was just like it was close at the first half, and then it wasn't. It felt like you were watching somebody play a video game on rookie mode. And UConn is doing some of its best work. May didn't expect this number 1 seed and the defending champions to make it out of the first weekend, because we haven't had a defending champion make it out of the first weekend in several years. So when it comes to this UConn team, are they right now the most dominant basketball team, NBA or NCAA, that you have ever seen? Braxton, I'm going to hit you with that tough question out of the gate.
Well, first of all, I mean, is that statistic something that we can talk about? How many people really didn't have UConn making out of the first weekend? I feel like that can't be super common. I mean,
there were
maybe there were
25% of America that fit out an ESPN bracket thought they would at least win the championship. So I mean, that's just something. I would just go off of that. That's the data we really have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, UConn is very dominant. I mean, I think this UConn team would beat the last 15 years of NCAA tournament teams that won. I mean, the last dominant team like this, I mean, you're talking about 2009 Carolina, and UConn probably beats them. Like this is incredible dominance. I mean, they're blowing people out by, what's their average margin of victory? 28,
double digits or something. Yeah,
I think it's 28 points. I think it's 28 points. It's ridiculous.
Let me go look it up.
Yeah, I believe it's 28 something. But yeah, they're very dominant. I think it's between them and Purdue all year long is the clear cut, head and shoulders above teams to win. And just because Purdue's not been blowing people out like UConn has doesn't mean they don't have a legitimate shot. But I think certainly UConn should be the favorite at this point. I mean, goodness, why wouldn't they? And they have proved some doubters wrong. I mean, their coach, Dan Hurley, has been talking a lot this tournament about how they've been disrespected with their game times, the difficulty of their region, the networks they've played on. I mean, heck, they even had some difficulties getting to the Final Four in Phoenix with their plane being delayed by 12 hours. I mean, and then just a little bit ago, the state of Connecticut just had a 4.8 earthquake. And so Connecticut's been going through it, man. And so I don't know. They feel like they have something to prove, to be the first, back-to-back champion since Florida. And so I don't know. They've got a chip on their shoulder, and the way they run their offense is just so hard to stop. They're incredibly efficient. Not many people have figured it out. So I mean, the matchup with Alabama is definitely intriguing because of how much they can score, shoot the ball. It's just, can Alabama defend their offense? And I think that's kind of the key to the game. But UConn's good, man. UConn's good, and they should be getting all the praise that they're getting right now.
And Trevor and I have a deal that we struck that I wouldn't ask for predictions on who wins the whole tournament because I respect his NC State fandom. It was part of the deal when we signed the contract to get him on the show for a supersized out of pocket today. But Trevor,
I kind of feel like Carolina lost because you made me pick the Carolina game last week, so that makes sense. That checks out.
Superstition is a real thing.
As soon as I saw it on the sheet, I was like, "Oh man, no, Carolina's gonna lose tonight."
to answer your question, Michael, about the dominant team thing, I'm glad you threw the NBA thing in there because my only two arguments to any whether there's a right answer or not, there's no way we'll ever have this answer. That's why I love this hypothetical, right? Like, oh, what's the most dominant team ever? It's like, okay, we can always debate it, right? Mm-hmm. That I've ever seen is the way you wrote the question. So I would say any death lineup for the Warriors was the best team I've ever seen. Like, I can't sit here and tell you that, because UConn shooting 28% in this Final Four run. As insane as the dominance is, they can be better. I mean, it like doesn't make 28% is ridiculous. Alabama, well, like if they have a great shooting night, this game's competitive out the gate. Like, it doesn't make any sense from that standpoint. But I would say, to answer your question in short, I would say it's the any iteration of, whether it's the 73-9 Warriors, any lineup that featured those death lineup Golden State Warriors teams, that's the most dominant team I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think, I'm sorry, I totally didn't answer the question, but I think I would reiterate exactly what you said, Trevor, is, yeah, that Warriors team that only lost 9 games is, to me, the most dominant I've ever seen.
And I feel like answering the question leaves people out. Like, it does. Like, I wasn't old enough to watch the 98 Bulls, right? Or the 96 Bulls, whichever iteration of the Bulls you think is the best.
Yeah.
Fair, fine, whatever. But if it's just, we're going to leave so many teams out, the Carolinas of the world, etc. I'm going to go with, and like an undefeated Kentucky team in 2012. I mean, they were undefeated and won the championship, right? It's like, or, you know, where they one loss or whatever it was, right? Yeah. So my point being is, I would go with the Warriors as the answer. But again, I feel like I'm leaving somebody out and doing somebody a disservice by not saying that answer.
The trick here with the question is that you say college or pro, so it makes it where it blows it open. College, I guess I'm the oldest person on the panel, so I have seen those teams and follow those teams religiously with no cable back when it was 4 channels, so you had to watch whatever it was that they were putting up on the screen. The 1990 UNLV Running Rebels are the greatest basketball team of all time, in my opinion. Like, it got to a point.
It's a good one.
It got to the point where CBS literally had UNLV on every Saturday afternoon because it was must-see TV, and they were blowing people out by 30, like every like Arkansas, like like they were literally blowing people out, and they still hold the largest margin of victory in the NCAA national championship game against the Duke Blue Devils in 1990, 30 points. They blew through that tournament. I think they won by average like 18 a game or something like that. I just pulled up the top 5 margins of victory. In 1996, Kentucky is actually number 1 that actually finished the tournament. They were winning by an average of 21.5 points a game in 96, and I was allowed to watch that team too, and they were really, really good. But UNLV and really 91 was better. I just can't count them because they lost to Duke in the Final Four, so they didn't finish the job. And to me, that leads me over to my pro pick. I can't pick those Warriors either because they didn't finish the job. They didn't actually win the NBA championship.
I'm with you. I picked any iteration of them because at that point, I know the 73-9 team didn't win the title, but the team that featured Kevin Durant, Draymond Green, Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and whatever other 5th player you want, that was the dominant team. That team did win a title though, not the 73-9 team. That team did win a title. But that team would lose. That team would lose to the 1995-96 Chicago Bulls.
100%. Like the 96 Bulls are the greatest NBA team of all time. Like, flat out. Like, they got to a point where they were toying with teams like in the regular season, and they could have won more than 72. But they hit a stretch when Jordan came back. He was more team oriented, and Scottie Pippen had grown into literally the second best player in the league. And it got to a point where it was like you can't guard them both. You know, like it's almost the way with Steph and Durant, but in a different manner. Like with Steph, you just got to run around everywhere with them the whole game. With Pippen and Jordan, they could get to the cup anytime they wanted to. They could control the game anytime they wanted to. And they're the 2 best defenders in the entire league, like literally hands down. You add Dennis Rodman to that, one of the top rebounders in the history of the game, and Phil Jackson, one of the greatest coaches of all time, if not I can't find an NBA team other than maybe the 87 Lakers maybe, or the 86 Celtics that I would put up against that team and expect them possibly to lose. But any of those Warriors teams, they're so used to spacing that they wouldn't know what to do with the Bulls in terms of down in the paint and getting, touched. Like, because literally if they're playing the 90s rules, those Warriors can't win that game. They're playing today's rules. I don't think the Warriors can win that game because the Bulls would excel at it. So I'm picking 96 Bulls and 1990 UNLV.
And Redmond. Oh, go ahead, Braxton.
I'm sorry. Desmond, did you find the average margin of victory for UConn this tournament?
Yes, right now I think it's 27.8 points per game or something like that.
That's insane.
It just won't be the official margin until they do the whole thing.
Yeah.
I will say this UConn team is the closest I can think of to UNLV in terms of pulling apart the 30-0 run or whatever they had last weekend. The only time I've ever seen that in my life is in the UNLV Duke national championship game. They call it the barrage, where in the second half, literally, like you see Duke players like literally holding back tears like on the court because there's nothing they can do to stop it. And it's just dunk after dunk after dunk after dunk for like 20 minutes in the second half. UNLV just exploded and like ran past them, and the final score was like 100-70 or something nuts like that. Like they lost by 30. It just
okay.
I've never seen that before.
This question wasn't to allow Des to take a shot at the Duke Blue
Oh
Devils.
no, I'm not taking a shot.
He's been doing it the last 2 weeks.
UNLV. Like,
hey, any shots at the Duke Blue
year.
Devils is great. So keep it up.
I applaud you, Michael. You just sit there and take it.
I just
Johnson, Stacey Ogman, George Ackles. Like, I mean, come on, man. Like, that UNLV team was fun.
Desmond. So if UConn wins the tournament, and if they hold up with the largest margin of victory, in your mind, does that shift? Could they be better than the 1990 UNLV? Because also they're back to back at this point. So
that's true.
And a different roster too. This is not like this is a bunch of returners either. This is
there's
like
a lot
Florida
of transfers that came in. The only thing that teams feared UNLV. Like they didn't want to play them. Like I don't know if teams
fear UConn. I'm terrified. Yes.
Okay.
Nobody wanted to be on UConn's bracket.
And they did lose 3 games this year, so they're not like invincible. I mean, UNLV had like a 45 or 50 something game win streak going on between 90 to 91 when they lost to Duke in the Final Four because they were undefeated going into that game. So I mean, it just that's one of the greatest upsets in NCAA history as well, if not the greatest upset, because no one picked Duke to win that game after getting slaughtered the year before, and for Duke to win that game kind of put that program where it is. You know, that was their signature win because of who they beat. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. It would definitely put UConn in the conversation, but it's kind of like the whole thing with LeBron is he goat because he's scored more points than everybody else. Like, there's kind of nuances there. Is that the greatest team you've seen, or is that the team that was just the most dominant? Like, there's kind of a difference to me. So I don't know. You'd have to put UConn in the conversation. Same way you have to put LeBron in the conversation for GOAT, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're the greatest.
Sure.
I have an argument. Yeah. I have an argument for the greatest upset ever in NCAA tournament history, but we don't have time for it. So
yeah, well, we might get to talk about an upset this weekend. NC State has been on a miraculous run, and if you're in the Carolinas watching, or you could be watching anywhere in the world, and you can comment on our YouTube channel, like Max said, UCLA with Kareem is probably one of the most dominant programs or teams in basketball history. You can comment on the channel.
Was Mac? Did he see them?
He turned 55 last week.
He might have actually.
Sorry to out your
he might have been up there. I was about to say that was a little ways back, Mac.
Yeah. That's a good shout out. You guys can be a part of the show too. Comment on our channel. Lorenzo's like, who can stop UConn? Agreed. Like that's a legitimate question, but somewhat a program who's defied the odds have been the Wolfpack all tournament long. They beat a 2 seed. They beat Duke in the Elite 8. Unfortunately, Duke could not stop DJ Burns, and this state run came out of nowhere. It came out of absolutely nowhere. We were going to split the Final Four and Wrestlemania 30-30, but Braxton and Trevor have agreed to be on a few extra minutes to talk about NC State and this miraculous run. Trevor, you're an NC State fan. I told you I'm not going to make you predict what's to come ahead. But when you look back at what NC State has done, what does this mean to NC State fans like yourself?
I love this question because this is a very easy, simple put answer. I will give you something to back it up a little bit on the miraculous side of things. I know it's in the agenda is how miraculous is the run. We have stats to back that up now. Thank goodness we are in the world we live in where we have data we've never had before, right? Specifically, Evan Mia. This was Evan Mia the other day. He tweeted this from his own analytics that he runs his site through. NC State has won 9 straight elimination games to get to the Final Four. If you use Evan Mia's pregame win probabilities, the chances of this happening are 0.0097% or 10,314 to 1. So ridiculous. Like the fact that I had to clear my calendar and debate flying to Phoenix this weekend is stupid. If you had told me that in the 3rd week of March, I'd have told you were stupid. Like there's no way I'm not buying a plane ticket to Phoenix before they price gouge them. What it means to me and my family and just my generation and age and all that stuff. There was always this argument that is the greater point of Carolina, Duke State, even Wake. I'll give them the credit because they've had some incredible teams, right? Back to Chris Paul and Tim Duncan and all those guys. But there's always been this greater argument that, like, the standard is this and the standard is that. And, like, here's what State fans have to hold on to, right? My mom was 13 years old when they won the last national championship. My mom was 17 when they won the last ACC championship. My generation has absolutely nothing to hold on to and to say this is something, I don't care if it's a hanging over a head moment against Duke or Carolina. It doesn't matter. It just deserved, because guess who we had to beat to get there? Duke and Carolina. So I don't care. I don't want to hear anything about the standard of this and the standard of that. There's people all over Facebook groups that are talking about it. My point being is my generation has something that we can be excited about and hold on to. And after this today and on to tomorrow, the expectations are out the window. I don't care what happens, because at the end of the day, I've never had an opportunity to rush Hillsborough Street, be at the Bell Tower with thousands and thousands of my best friends and celebrate something. And guess what? After they made the Final Four, I got in the car and drove 45 minutes to Hillsborough Street, stood under the Bell Tower with my wife and some of my best friends who have been with me through this journey forever. And it's something that I'll never forget till the day I die.
And I want to get Braxton Dez's thoughts on what it means for just ACC in general. But Dez has some breaking news for us about the Carolina Panthers. Dez, would you care to elaborate?
What? Yeah, this just dropped on Twitter on the Panthers website. The Panthers extend defensive tackle Derek Brown, one of the most significant moves of the offseason. They did it with one of their own. Agreed to terms with defensive tackle Derek Brown on Friday on a multi-year contract extension, which will keep the foundation of their defense in place after his best individual season. Made his first Pro Bowl in 2023. He was about to go into the final year of his rookie deal. The extension allows him to start the offseason program next week on the right note. He set the league record for tackles by a defensive lineman with 103 last season. That's the highest total ever for a defensive tackle. And with Aaron Donald retiring, you can safely make an argument that Derek Brown's one of the top defensive tackles in the game. So the Carolina Panthers and Dan Morgan, the new GM, putting in work, getting Derek Brown under contract. That's going to free up some more money because they can push some stuff around with the bonuses or whatnot. There's nothing on here that says what the deal is. So that'll probably pop out a little bit later on. So keep an eye on Twitter, and we'll keep that on the Tobacco Road Twitter account as well. But breaking news, Derek Brown, our star defensive lineman, signed to a multi-year extension by the Carolina Panthers. That just broke a minute ago.
Now, that is what you call a supersized, out-of-pocket, 2 breaking news in 1 hour. Braxton, you're a big Panthers guy. What do you think about that move?
Well, other breaking news.
What?
Zach Edey just became the first player since 1983 to back-to-back AP Player of the Year. So that just came out. So we got breaking news left and right, Michael.
That was Ralph Sampson, if I'm not mistaken, 1983. And
that sounds right.
You know how crazy that is, too? Because it's their path, the Wolfpack's path is following what happened in 83.
Please stop talking.
In the Final Four, they had to beat Virginia and the 2-time National Player of the Year, Ralph Sampson. And then they played, many considered a dominating, unbeatable Houston team in the national championship game, who they would probably end up playing UConn. So
I rewatched Survive in Advance, and the amount of texts I sent that said this exact same thing on Monday.
It's so crazy.
I'm not even gonna I'm just gonna let it rest because
shout out to Kevin Keats, man. I love the Kevin Keats.
I'm glad the Zach Edey thing's official, by the way, because I know Dalton Connect was incredible. That game obviously had no influence on anything, but I mean, I think honestly, since January, none of us were surprised that was about to happen. So that's awesome to hear. It's officially done. It's officially that Zach Edey did it. So
and this big Zach Edey news as well. People are wondering if he can last in the NBA because of the style of play the NBA does. Does his game translate well? Braxton, you broke that Edey news. Do you think it does
translate to the NBA?
Yeah,
I think his shot at the NBA is better than most people give him.
Absolutely.
I mean, what is he projected? The 13th pick right now, I think, in the draft. I think that's where he's at.
I didn't know it was that high.
His range is basically from the end of the lottery to the middle of the second round, and it's the most uncomfortable thing ever trying to talk about it because
it's so funny. 15 years ago and beyond, I mean, there is no question he would be the first pick on everybody's projected draft list. I mean, and it would be crazy to think that he wouldn't be the first pick. And I'm not saying that in today's NBA he should be the first pick, but I think and a lot of people say that he's only good because of his size. I mean, he's got some real ability. He understands the game defensively to be able to block out. He's not the best defender to stay in front of people, but he understands the importance of blocking out. And of course he can grab rebounds at 7'4". But I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be interesting. There's a lot of teams getting some, with some really tall dudes on their team. I saw somebody the other day say, can you imagine if the Thunder picked him up and put Chet
yeah.
Holmgren as like the power forward, and you had Edie as the center. I mean, I don't know. I think he'll do well. A lot of people say that he's maybe a backup center, but I think he'll start on somebody's team.
I'm starting to think now, especially after watching NBA and look at the division leaders. Like, look at the top of the standings right now. The league is kind of going back from that death lineup, small ball type of what they were doing, and going back to big men again, which I love because I grew up inside out playing basketball. So look at Minnesota. They're anchored by two big men. Oklahoma City, they've got Chet in the middle. Milwaukee with Giannis. Like, it broke down where there's no longer big threes. You might have a big two, and you got to have somebody in the paint. Like, Joel, yeah. I mean,
Jokic.
Like, you're running Jokic.
The best players right now are big guys.
They're big men. So I'm looking at it now, and I'm like, well, could Edie and DJ Burns find a place in the NBA? And I think they could. Like, the way
DJ Burns has a better shot at the NFL.
And he's already declined. He's already cut that out. He literally got interviewed yesterday.
Questions were football questions yesterday during the press day, and I felt sorry for him. So I'm like, he's not a football player. He's a basketball player and a damn good one. And like, everyone's asking him about playing left tackle. I'm like, that's not why he's here.
He shot down every single thing yesterday about that.
Yeah.
I mean, the trouble with Burns, though, that people talk about, it's not like this is the first time someone said it, is very gifted offensively, but he is a major liability on defense. I mean, that dude can't stay in front of a sloth. Like, crazy.
I mean, Jokic, you could say kind of the same thing to a certain extent. It just
he moves better. He moves better.
Yeah.
I mean, if Burns got his conditioning in order,
he went from 20-something minutes regular season to damn near 40 in the tournament. It feels like it didn't feel like he hardly ever comes out. I don't know what happened, but they just they start playing him more all of a sudden 3 weeks ago.
My only argument with Edie would be he sets like 0 screens right now. And if in the NBA he just sets screens and he is a big that rebounds and tries to block shots, he'll play 12 to 14 minutes a game. I don't expect him to do much more than that. And if he does, that's awesome. But like, the Nuggets are a perfect example of, if you throw him into a playoff game for 12 minutes and let him set screens and rebound and block shots, that's all you need him to be. And I think that's all he will be. And that's really, I think, the biggest thing that all the draft evaluators are going to tell you is just what he doesn't do right now. And the biggest thing he doesn't do right now is screen enough. And that's really what I think will make a difference for him.
Mm-hmm.
Man, and this has been a huge show. I want to thank Braxton and Trevor for staying on a little bit longer, but we got to talk about these games real quick. Now, Trevor, I said I wouldn't have you pick the NC State game. Are you willing to give a quick prediction and factors in the Alabama UConn game? You can decline if you don't feel comfortable.
No, I will predict I would predict anything except for my own team, because this is the first time we've ever made it this far. What I will say, though, is I'll sit here and tell you, I think I told you in my voice message to you earlier, like, I'll tell you any reason why I think Purdue can win and NC State can win. I'm not telling you what I think will happen, because I don't think anything will happen. I've cleared my brain and memory of that. But my point being, my only question I would have with the Alabama thing, just because of the 28% piece I laid out earlier with UConn's three-point shooting this run, is what is I've asked this on every show, or tried to figure out this question on every show, and someone asked it to me originally. What is the number of threes that Alabama has to make to have a chance to win the game? I would set the FanDuel, DraftKings, I know you guys are DraftKings partners, I would set the DraftKings line at 15. Alabama has to make 15 threes to even make this game remotely competitive up and down. And if you do the math, that's 45 points.
I was going to say 12. I was going to land around 12.
12's good, but that's still a ton, right? That's still a ton of threes, even for them. So I would say, I'm not going to sit here and discredit and say Alabama has no chance, because I'm probably, of people that cover college basketball at a large scale, I'm probably one of the biggest Alabama just like consistent haters this year. But their schedule earlier in the year, especially if you go look at the KenPom ratings, they've set themselves up for this moment. They've played an incredible non-conference slate, including an Elite Eight team like Clemson, including a couple of other teams in there as well. And the point being is they are conditioned to be able to keep up offensively. People are going to sit here and tell you about the defense, If Clinton gets in foul trouble, Alabama can take this game by the horns and take off and be done. Like, if Clinton gets in foul trouble, Alabama will have a huge chance. Pringle's been incredible. He's averaged, I think his over rebounds has hit for like 3 months straight or something like that. So 3 weeks straight, excuse me. But they just have to keep themselves in the game. They can't have the poor shooting half like they had against whoever they played in the Elite Eight, Clemson. They had a ridiculously bad first half, and then the second half they shot 65%. UConn will put their foot on the throat in the first half and make them regret that. And if they can keep the game close, those 12 threes, 15 threes, whatever it is, if Clean gets in foul trouble, I think Alabama can win the game. I think people are giving them not enough credit, and I'm the biggest Alabama hater you're going to ask on this panel probably.
Wow. Well, let's see about that because, Braxton, I'm going to hit you with both games. Alabama versus UConn, NC State versus 1 seed Purdue. NC State's defied the odds all the way up until this point. Who do you think advances to the championship game on Monday?
Well, glad that Trevor got his background fixed there. That needed to happen. First of all, I want to say this. I think the NCAA tournament needed this Final Four. Because the last couple of years, the tournament hasn't had the storylines that this one has had. And I mean, just to think about it, I love the storylines with this weekend's games because we've talked about a lot of these, but UConn trying to get back to winning a second national championship. Alabama has never been here before, but they're at football school. Can they do it on the basketball side? NC State, can they be the first 11 seed to ever win? And their incredible run, the numbers that you just mentioned, Trevor, that their percentage of chance of being here is ridiculous. And then Purdue, I think Purdue has a huge chip on their shoulder with losing to a 16 seed as a 1 seed last year and having the first back-to-back AP College Basketball Player of the Year since 1983. I mean, there's so many storylines that the TV ratings I think are going to explode this weekend. But I just, so as far as the matchups go, the NC State and Purdue one, I don't know.
Yeah, that's the best way to go. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, at this point with NC State, it's just like there's logic and then what's happening. And it's just like,
in my bracket, I had them winning their first 2 games.
Thank you.
And I mean, them was it A&M they played first or was it Texas Tech?
Texas Tech.
They played Texas Tech first, and that was a good win. When they got matched up with Oakland, beating them made sense. After that, I mean, I didn't give him a chance. I didn't give him a chance.
It was Marquette, and then who else?
Yeah,
it was Duke.
Duke.
Oh yeah, and then Duke.
Yeah.
Neither did I, by the way. I'm just kidding. I'm going to be upfront about that. Neither did I.
Crazy. So I'll say this: my brother-in-law goes to NC State right now, and my father-in-law has been a Wolfpack fan for years and years. He remembers the first championship in the 70s. And they're actually in Phoenix right now. And I'm talking about this, and Trevor just left. But
DJ Burns is there.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We got Burns now. But yeah, they're actually in Phoenix, so they're going to be there at the games tomorrow.
I hope they have the best time in the world.
They're stoked. They're absolutely stoked.
But I will push back on the whole large TV audience just because it's not on CBS. It's on TBS this year.
That's true.
So I don't know what that – and I hate when they do that. They should just be on CBS every year because not everybody has access to TBS. So you're kind of paying to watch it.
So dumb.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't stand it when they go back and forth.
Can you imagine, though, if it was on CBS?
Now you're talking, especially if State gets there. If it's like UConn State, like on Monday night, which is kind of what I'm leaning towards. I'm not going to pick it because, again, like I said the other day and throughout the week, I'm a Carolina fan, so I can't pick for State because I feel like I've been jinx them if I do. So I'm going to say State's going to lose by 40 here in the Final Four. But deep down, I'm like, I wouldn't mind a UConn NC State national championship game on Monday night.
I don't know. I get you. I want to it'd be really neat to see State there. Obviously, my family is going to be there, so it'd be neat for them to be at the game with State there. But all year long, I mean, it's been Purdue, UConn. It's been Purdue, UConn.
Collision course. They've been on a collision course.
And it would be really epic to see both of those teams in the final. Because how many times in the past 15 years has there been 2 teams like this all year long that actually make it to the final? Like, it's rare.
Yeah, it's really rare.
So it would be really cool to see both of those teams in the final and see what happens.
Trevor was about to.
I know you got to get to go into other stuff. I'll just end with this because I know you got to get to other stuff. I'll end with my stuff with this. People should be excited about the Wolfpack men But I feel like it would be a disservice to not use my platform to promote women's basketball right now, and that's what I'm going to do. The NC State women and the UConn women, by the way, are both in the Final Four, and they both play tonight. I'm going to give the Lady Pack a huge amount of credit. Wes Moore has put on a masterclass. I'm wearing a hat of one of the 2 ACC championships they won. They got robbed of the third one. They could be 3 out of 4 since 2020 on ACC women's championships, but 2's still good. And they're in the Final Four finally. They defeated a lot of really great teams to get there. Obviously, their task is mighty. Like, if we think UConn's good, South Carolina hasn't lost like 5 games in like 4 years, okay? So let's just like put it out there. They are a real underdog tonight, and I'm just going to give the ladies a whole bunch of credit for being there. The other thing is, to your audience, I'm going to be held accountable. If NC State wins the national championship game, this bottle has been sealed since 1983.
No,
and I'm sure I will simultaneously. Every podcast I've been on, I've already made this tweet. I've said this. There's no holding back now. I will open this and I will drink this on a live stream. So I'm just gonna keep putting it out there.
My dad had the red cans.
I have a red can as well. That is open, unfortunately.
And they did it for Carolina the year before, where it was like blue cans and blue. So he has those too. And I think I just randomly as a kid opened one day, like on the shelf, just to see if it would taste good. It tasted horrible.
Des survived. So hey, there's my proof that I'll be okay. Look, my wife's a medical professional, so everything will be okay. But my point is look, you're talking about the run and how crazy it is. It's plastered on the side of this bottle forever. I'll keep the bottle. I don't care, but I will drink this on the next Out of Pocket if they win the national championship game.
Well, that would be awesome. It would be awesome to have you back on. It'd be awesome to have Braxton Critcher on. Thank you guys, by the way. I only scheduled y'all for the first 30, but you guys have been super incredible about, staying on a little later, talking about Final Four, talking about the breaking news. We've had 3 sets of breaking news in this first ever supersized Out of Pocket show. So you guys, if you're wanting to see more content by Trevor, the 2 Pointers podcast, everything college basketball, go find him. Braxton, where can people find you?
Well, the only content you'll find from me is pictures of my dog. So you can find me on Facebook, but I don't have Instagram. I haven't touched my Twitter account since like 2018. So
good for you. Yeah.
Good luck following me there.
Awesome.
I've touched it like 12 times since we've been on this podcast.
So I mean, you can see pictures of my dog, but that's about it. So, it's been fun. I've liked this. I used to do like you were talking about earlier, Michael. I used to do sports radio a lot and covered the Panthers for a while, and this is really cool because I've been out of that industry for a little bit, so it's been neat to get back on and talk sports. So thanks.
Well, honestly, can I give you a compliment though? I followed your account, thinking that you had been posting and all that stuff, and I saw the radio and whatever, and I'm trying to just connect with everybody, and I saw the show and I'm like, oh, App State guy, that makes sense with Michael and all that stuff. So when you ask a question in like the first 5 minutes, back to Michael asking a question with a question is the most radio host thing ever. So I was like, I knew you had your own show at some point. I was like, I could tell right then. I'm like, he's got it. And I just wanted to give you two a congratulations for extending your head coach, the best head coach you've had maybe ever. Goodness. I mean, congratulations. That is good for Triangle. You get my point. That is good for basketball in North Carolina. He's an incredible coach, and congrats on extending Dusty Kearns.
Well, I would add to that. Like, once I saw players starting to transfer, and obviously it's really hard for small schools to keep their coaches because all these big schools throw money at them. Correct. So to have Dustin Kearns extended for 6 more years is absolutely phenomenal.
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
So here's what I believe should have happened. What is happening is NC State is in the Final Four, and App State did not make the tournament. But had not App State basketball, blown things up in the Sun Belt tournament and did what they should have and won, made it to the tournament, and NC State didn't go on this miraculous run or lost to Louisville or lost to Syracuse in the ACC tournament, I think Kevin Keats was fired and Dustin Kearns was the next head coach of NC State. That's what I was predicting. And obviously both coaches have now signed extensions. But just to think about, if the Virginia player makes that free throw in the ACC tournament.
Thank Virginia, because if that if that free throw hits, none of this happens.
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yes. Hey. And so as an App State guy, and Michael, you can agree, I'm like you too, Desmond. Thank you for that happening.
Thank you,
'Cause-
Virginia. Thank you, NC State. Thank you, Trevor, Everette, and Braxton Critcher for both hopping on. I'll let you guys pop out. Des and I are going to quickly preview the big matches at this weekend's WrestleMania. I was on Franchise Players with Des later, and Trevor gets his light beams in the background. Appreciate you guys. Des, WrestleMania is this weekend, Saturday night and Sunday night. We talked about a little bit of this on Franchise Players, but when we look at night one, what's your predictions? I know Judgment Day has a lot of big matches. Gunther defends his Intercontinental title. What's your big prediction for night one?
Either I think Gunther's reign may end on night one as Intercontinental Champion to Sami Zayn. I don't know who mentioned it or what I was watching, where we might get a situation where it's kind of like WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 20 with Benoit and Eddie Guerrero in the middle ring? Maybe we get something like that on Sunday night where Sami defeats Gunther for the IC title, and then on Sunday Kevin Owens defeats Logan Paul for the US title, and Sami comes out and they embrace in the ring or something like that. That could be a cool WrestleMania moment. So I'm thinking maybe something like that on night one. We all kind of assume that Judgment Day is going to lose these titles. It could be a swerve if they kept one of them, like if they kept the Raw title or to something to that effect, which I could see, actually. I could see them keeping the Raw title, and maybe the Awesome Truth, somebody gets the SmackDown titles and they move them over there. Or I don't think you need to put it on New Day. Who else is in that? New Catch Republic, I could see maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's some younger ones that could maybe get one of them. I'm leaning back towards Judgment Day holding on to one of those two straps instead of losing them both. It's just a way to split them up without Judgment Day like getting pinned, pretty much. So probably those two matches: the tag team title ladder match, the 6-man or 6-pack match, and Gunther losing to Sami Zayn.
With Judgment Day, do you think Rhea loses her title to Becky Lynch?
Yeah, I think she does. I think she's going to lose it because she's had it a year, and once she gets to WrestleMania, she'll have it for a full year. And what Triple H has done, he's made the titles important. If you look at everybody that's got a title right now, they've all had them for over like 200 plus days each. Some of them close to a year, and then in the case of Roman, he's had it for close to 4. So I mean, he's made all of the titles relevant again by not playing hot potato with them and having them bounce around on a Raw or SmackDown like every 3 weeks or whatever. But it's about time. I could see both of the women's titles changing hands and going back to 4 horsewomen, you know?
Yeah, and when you think about night 2, Damian Priest has the Money in the Bank briefcase when Seth Rollins wrestles Drew McIntyre and Rollins defends the World Heavyweight title against him. I'm expecting maybe a swerve to where Priest cashes in on McIntyre after he beats Seth Rollins. Am I out of pocket on that?
No, because I'm starting to think maybe he tries to cash in but fails. That's one of the things where we haven't really talked about. I'm trying to think of the last person that happened to. Was that Miz? Somebody had it and tried to cash in and didn't. It was against John Cena. I can't remember who it was. I think it was Miz. I can't remember. Somebody tried to do it and failed. Austin Theory. I think Austin Theory did the same thing. So I could see Damian trying to cash in on Drew or Seth and fail. I noticed they've been pushing Clash at the Castle a lot.
Yeah.
And it's making me
Drew's
think
hometown.
and I'm making me think Drew's going to walk in as champion, or he's going to win it there. Like they'll get a rematch or something against Seth there, or something to that effect. But yeah.
And especially with Drew been chasing this win in front of a crowd, like he may get this weekend at WrestleMania, or he may get Clash at the Castle. And I mean, whether he's going in as a baby face or a heel, a good guy or a bad guy, I'm sure that would mean a lot to Drew McIntyre to have that moment. But the big story around this weekend is the Bloodline. The Bloodline's dominating this weekend. We have Jay versus Jimmy night 1. We have the night 1 main event, The Rock and Roman Reigns teaming up against Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins. And then, of course, night 2's main event for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship, Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes. They wrestled last year. Roman came away victorious. Cody's won back-to-back Royal Rumbles, giving him this opportunity. Des, you and I have been a fan of this Bloodline story for 4 years, and it's been the best story probably in wrestling history. What do you make of all the moving parts? Because, I mean, we could spend an entire extra hour just talking about how great this Bloodline story is.
I mean, kudos to Paul Heyman, Roman Reigns, Triple H, everyone that's been involved with this from the top down, because they've been able to keep things pretty close to the vest on how things are going to end. And I saw something, Paul Heyman was like, the ending to the Bloodline story has been changed multiple times since we started it. So it's kind of an ongoing thing. They wanted Rock Reigns for the main event of this WrestleMania when it became available. That's what they wanted. The fans changed. It's kind of like when Daniel Bryan got shoehorned into the main event at WrestleMania 30, I think it was.
Yeah.
Where the fans kind of hijacked the WrestleMania. But they gave the fans what they wanted by having Daniel Bryan win at the end of it, because that was the best way for the storyline to go. I don't know if that's the best way for the storyline to go with Cody winning the Universal title off of Roman Reigns. Like, it kind of disintegrates everything you've built up to this point and everything that comes out of it. Like, I don't see it happening. And if anything, I could see it more of they build it more. They didn't build this year as a redemption tour for Cody to get back to Roman Reigns. It kind of turned right there. Really, it was Brock for like 3-4 months. They had him in that. Then he just kind of was floating around. He's a top babyface or whatever. I think once their paths crossed on SmackDown, and that kind of hinted, but they never really made it like it was with John Cena and The Rock, that 2-year program where it was like Cena losing to Rock, put him at rock bottom, and the whole next year was about his path to get back to Rock again. And at that point, Rock was the champion. By the time they saw each other, he wins the title. That's his storybook thing. They didn't do that with Cody, which gives you the telltale indication that he is not supposed to win this title. And something big is going to happen that changes WWE and the Bloodline, in my opinion, in that match. Like, something's going to happen. Someone's going to appear. Someone's going to interfere. I don't know what it's going to end up being, but it's going to be something that takes Cody out of the Bloodline storyline and puts him on a track for something else, or it puts him against somebody else in the Bloodline that newly arrives. Like, something's going to happen. Let Roman keep that belt, because it's not good for business for him to lose it right now.
And this Bloodline story is just so detailed with everything they're doing. And I'd be remiss without mentioning that Jey Uso quit the WWE storyline wise and left SmackDown, and it was Cody Rhodes who brought him back to Raw, and that kind of separated Jay and Jimmy for a few months until they met up again at the Royal Rumble, being the first and second entrant. And then that's led to their match night 1. Brother versus brother. First time twins have ever wrestled against each other at WrestleMania after they main event night 1 last year. I know you've mentioned this before, but is Jey Uso that guy who is a big factor in that night 2 main event?
I think he is. And the telltale was this past Monday on Raw, the breakdown at the very end in the main event. And I was telling you about it in the text message chain. I was rewatching it. And when Jay comes out, or how did it go? Jay goes backstage during that matchup chasing after somebody, and then all of a sudden you just see him get tossed back out into the ramp, and it's The Rock coming in behind him. But you don't actually see Rock tossing him out there. And then instead of kicking him or punching him or whatever, Rock simply picks him up, lightly throws him into the video board, and throws him backstage again. Like, it was almost like they did it to kind of smoke screen, like, oh, well, he truly didn't in the Bloodline. But if you look at it, it's like, well, he's not really even hitting him. Like, he's not really doing anything to him. And are they going to come back to that on Monday after WrestleMania and show all these things they've layered in the past year? Like when Rock was attacking Cody Rhodes 2 weeks ago outside. Where was Jey Uso? He was in the ring getting a win against Shinsuke Nakamura. But that didn't prevent him from running out there after the match was over. Like, where did he go? Like, Seth got took out by Drew, so they answered that question, and it left Jay. Jay never went out there to help him. So why? There's stuff like that, and they've been layering this down pretty intricately. I'm still sticking to my guns. Jey Uso is going to turn heel and rejoin his family. He was just getting interviewed like 2 days ago, talking about he wants more family members to come up to WWE to join the Bloodline. He's like, I'm not with them currently at the moment, but they could make this Bloodline storyline so much bigger. There's like 10 other wrestlers that are in our family that are spread out in different promotions. He's still talking as if he's in the Bloodline. So
wow.
Yeah, and it's not like, it's like out of character, like he's talking like he's himself, but he's talking as if he's still in the Bloodline. And Paul Heyman has laid some stuff down, giving compliments to Jay too the past like couple of weeks in terms of him being able to grow into a bigger star. He's coming back, and it's gonna screw Cody, and maybe it starts a Cody J program or something. I don't know, but that's what I'm thinking is going to end the night.
Especially if Cody feels betrayed by bringing Jey Uso back to Monday Night Raw just for Jay to turn on him and keep him away from finishing his story. And guys, think about it. If Cody finishes his story, why would people tune in Monday on Raw? championship celebration, whatever. But
The
where do you go
balloons
from there?
fall and- yeah, where do you go? Like people think they want Cody as champ, but really they like the chase. They like Cody chasing after it. But usually, if a babyface wins it, the crowd gets tired of the babyface after a couple months as champ. It's just like you almost have to be like a tweener, like a Stone Cold, like kind of a babyface, but kind of not to keep the interest. And Cody's not that. Like I will say, Cody's been on a lot of programming. I saw him on was it Pat McAfee? No, the Ariel's MMA pod. I saw that last night. I think I watched it, and he's been making the rounds. So was The Rock and Roman Reigns. So they've really pushed this WrestleMania. I can't remember a buzz for WrestleMania like this in a long time.
And this is why we're covering it on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. It's why you're seeing it covered on all the major ESPN outlets. Pat McAfee's covering it on his show. Booking Like a Mark is commenting on YouTube right now. They do a really good podcast. They've covered it as well. Rock kept his word when he said, make Cody bleed. If Bloodline loses night one tag, do they keep their word?
I think they do, but that's the whole point. Like Jay's not in Bloodline. That's the whole hook. That's what they've laid out. I think that's why they put the parameter there to put Cody's guard down, to think that, oh, well, none of them come in. Jay's not even in the Bloodline. He can't come in. And then it ends up being Jay. And then on Monday night, they kind of go, this has been a plan a year in the making, because we knew you were going to come sniffing back around for this title again. We sent Jay to Raw. Like we handle all, like literally they're going to come out and say all that. So, yeah.
Hey, and if you've never watched WWE or WrestleMania, or you've gotten out of it because it was cool back in the Attitude Era, wrestling is cool again. This is why we covered it on Out of Pocket this week. This is why we covered it on the Drop the Mic Wrestling podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio. That's what we covered on Franchise Players this week. I was a guest on Tap Outs and Touchdowns that you saw commenting earlier in the stream. I was a guest on Mouthing Off with Mike. Mike Neely's been part of Out of Pocket and Top Rope Tuesdays. This is cool again, and it's accessible to you guys on Peacock as well. Now, with that said, before we leave, I do not want any spoilers for Saturday night, because I'll be commentating in Ferguson, North Carolina, Mount Pleasant Elementary, Squared Circle Champions.
Don't even turn on your phone then. Like,
I know.
I forgot I put on like alerts on my ESPN app or something, and it was like giving me like results like before I could watch it. So I had to completely take the ESPN app off my phone. Final Four Saturday night too. So I mean, yeah, I'm gonna try to start off with the NC State. Luckily, they're playing at 6. So I'm gonna start off there. By the time that's over, it'll be 8 o'clock. I should be able to start at the beginning of WrestleMania unless they start early, and I can get the highlights from the UConn game because I expect them to win. And then Sunday is Sunday. So just a huge weekend, man. Huge weekend.
Dude, it's stacked. That's why we had a supersized Out of Pocket. If you guys do come to SEC in Ferguson, you're around the area, come see me, say hi, let's take a picture. We'll post it on our Out of Pocket channel as well. But guys, subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel. We'll be covering the Final Four and what happened this upcoming weekend on Monday. We'll cover what happened on WrestleMania, but we got to get out of here. We couldn't even cover this all in an hour, but thank you guys so much for tuning in. Our numbers were huge today, and we will see you guys back Monday afternoon Out of Pocket.
I got the numbers for the Derek Brown contract too as we get out. Wow. It's 4 years, $96 million extension with the Panthers, just signed 20 minutes ago. So shout out to the Panthers, shout out to Derek Brown. Welcome back. Probably the best player we have. And for them to bring him on at that rate, good stuff, man. Good stuff. Panthers doing great work.
Yeah, good job for the Panthers locking Derek Brown up. Guys, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy everything and all the festivities. We'll see you back Monday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern for your lunch break.